Fighting with the cord. Good morning and welcome to the PF Warriors meeting. Before we start, I want to thank Baylor for providing these meeting rooms and the snacks and the support, and Tammy Peterson, the clinical program lung manager, is here today with us. Is Paula coming too?
No, she's at the cystic fibrosis walk.
Okay. Anyway, I can't tell you how much help that Paula and Tammy both have given us, and in fact, Paula works with Scott, my husband, and it's just been incredible. They're fantastic. They have a smile for everybody. They give you help when you need it. Scott and I have periods where we're anxious about things, and they calm us down. So thank you, Tammy, for all that you do for us, and we really appreciate it. Before we introduce our speakers today, we're working on some of the next meetings that are coming up, and in July we're going to have just patients talking to patients only. So it'll be here at Baylor. And I apologize about my voice. It comes and goes because of people who mow their lawn are allergic to the grass pollen, so it comes and goes. But we're going to have small groups. So for me to get an idea of how to break up the groups, how many of you have a diagnosis of IPF? Okay. How many have sort of an environmental, inflammatory, or autoimmune? How many lung transplants? We usually have more. The lung transplant people are not here. I know of 4 of us. It's good, Catherine, to see you again. Okay. Fantastic. Okay, so we have Esther Castilla, and Mike Daly is going to introduce Esther. Oh, we're not. No, we're not. Esther's not going first. Sorry. Bill Vick is going to, our founder, Bill Vick is going to talk about some of the experiences he's had lately and introduce the first speakers.
See, Shelley and I are so well organized.
Yeah.
Well, okay, it's good. I'm just so excited because a couple things, but before we start, I'd like to just and talk a little bit about one of our members, Vicki and Tony Thomason. And many of you know Vicki, and she was a member here, an active member, as was and is Tony. And Vicki went through a transplant procedure. I'm not sure exact time. I'm going to say probably about 4, maybe 5 months ago, and just had a lot of significant problems with rejection and pneumonia and a lot of other things, and she was just an absolute fighter. Her husband moved her and their house essentially here to Texas. She went here at Baylor where her transplant was performed, and she waged a tough fight, but PF caught her in the end. She passed away this last week. So I'd like to take just a moment and just kind of quiet and just kind of reflect for a moment. Prayers are welcome, thoughts are mandatory, and let's just kind of think about Vicki and Tony as well and what they've gone through. Thank you. Secondly, I think each one of us, there's somebody that has been responsible for every one of you, every one of us being here. You know who that is? Our mothers. Now, we got Mother's Day coming up, and I just wondered, from my own standpoint, how many people here are mothers? Don't raise your hand, guys. Outstanding. Almost universal. I want to wish you, as mothers, and them as mothers, Happy Mother's Day. It's a great occasion, and one we should remember, I guess, every day of the year. Many of you were last week, I was up in Chicago. I was invited to participate in what's called the Catalyst Challenge. And a lot of people have asked me questions. I'm going to give kind of a 20,000-foot view of what the Catalyst Challenge is. and why I think it's so important, and it's going to impact every person in this room, be it caregiver or patient. And I tell the story of the founder of what happened and the reason that came into being. About 5 years ago, there was a family north of Chicago who had just unusual success in business. They had founded a company, it was a private company. It became a multi-billion-dollar company, and the family became multi-billionaires. They had lots and lots of money. The matriarch of the family came down with IPF. She waged a tough fight for 5 years, and here you are with a family with all the resources you can imagine that couldn't fight it. They couldn't stop it. She didn't qualify for the transplant. She had a real problem with antibodies. End result is she died about a year ago. So the family came together and said to themselves, you know, what can we do to honor our mother, my wife? And they put together what's called the Catalyst Challenge. The Catalyst Challenge is two things. It's an initiative to bring together within the pulmonary fibrosis community, the medical side of that community, those researchers, those doctors, those educators, those academics, those that are really leading the battle on pulmonary fibrosis. They took 40 of them from around the world and brought them together in Chicago. I was a token patient. It was kind of humbling because here you have to imagine this now. Here I am in this room with people who many of you know their names. If you do anything researching pulmonary fibrosis, you'll know many of them. And I'm sitting there in this room and kind of awestruck, kind of like rock stars, if you will. And all of them had like 16 initials after their name. And I'm this kind of a dumb kid from Texas who's there, you know, kind of smiling and nodding and doing anything they want me to do for patients, and speaking on behalf of patients. Well, the two main things that happened that I want to share with you because it's important. One is there will be a patient initiative, and it's going to be focused on two areas. One, which is near and dear to all of our hearts in this room, is support groups. And I'll personally be getting involved to take a message of support groups broadly across the United States. I had an excellent meeting with the acting CEO of the Pulmonary Fibrosis Foundation, with the chairman of the board of the American Lung Association about that initiative, and they're both supportive. It's going to happen. I'm putting together right now. Funding is there. Whatever it takes is available. Second thing we did at the challenge, which is focused more on the entrepreneurial side of the pulmonary fibrosis medical community, is offer a prize. And the prize is for that company or companies that comes forward with the best solution to enhance patients' living and or find a cure. And the prize is $1 million, which is pretty significant. The funding in back of that prize is way in excess of $100 million. It's a fund that's created, it's there. So these companies now in that marketplace can tap into that fund and be funded. And I can tell you, having been in companies myself, that's really important. That's going to happen. That's happened. They've already invested in several small companies, two in the UK I'm aware of, and one in the United States. So as those take place and happen, it's going to impact us. Because I can tell you that one of the things that impressed me in the presentations, in every major university, Harvard and Yale and Columbia, Stanford, they were all represented. The heads of those departments for pulmonary fibrosis or pulmonary disease spoke, was there, it's part of the team, so to speak. I saw one guy that really impressed me as a young guy, and that's what, so you understand, young to me, it's me and younger people. Yeah. So he's a founder of a company called Unity Biotechnology. Unity Biotechnology is involved in gene research. They have identified the molecule that controls aging. Now, if you can control aging, you can stop pulmonary fibrosis. Now, there's a lot of ramifications to that, but that's in motion. I'd say that one company is probably 2 to 3 years away from having something that can go into testing. So they're not talking about a drug. They're talking about manipulating the genes in your body to turn off the switch to stop pulmonary fibrosis. And that's big news. Big news. That's going to happen. That's just one of many companies doing this, by the way. There's a lot of other companies and academics doing the exact same thing. So that was very impressive to me. The other thing is this little thing. This is indicative of a bunch of products that are coming down the pipe to do this. Now, think about the last time you went in for your PFTs. You go down to the clinic, office someplace, you sit in a chair and they put a tube in your mouth and you huff and you puff and they bring up numbers and they talk about your FTC and other relative, which Esther's going to explain a lot better than I could even try to. So they do that. Well, that's called a spirometer. This is the same thing. But this one sits in my pocket or my office or my home, and when I blow into it and create my numbers, it automatically sends it to my smartphone, and my smartphone takes the information and sends it to my doctor or my rehab center or my printer. I want to accumulate it or data. Think of that. It sells for about $1,300. So cheap. I know what spirometers cost in the hospital, unless you could probably tell me, but I would have to say many thousands of dollars. But it doesn't do what this does. This is pretty slick. I'm going to give away 10 this morning. Who wants one? I would. I'll tell you how to get it. You have to register to get it. You have to become part of the study. And the study is going to take about 4 weeks. And the study is run by an organization called Patient Empower. So if you go to their website, and I'm going to send a link out after our meeting. It's patient, letter M, power, all one word. So it's patientempower.com/pages/PFWarrior. If you go to that website, you'll have a sign-up form to qualify for the test. Qualification essentially is you have to have pulmonary fibrosis, which you're all going to qualify. They're going to give up to 10 of them away. So it's kind of first gets the most. So if it was me, and I was sitting here with my smartphone, I'd probably get it. But it's something that's really cool. It's a great concept, and I think it's indicative of a lot of other things that are happening, and they're happening very quickly. So with that, I'm going to step out of the way. I will introduce our first speaker, though, and that's Kamathi Stem. And Kamathi is, she's the CEO of a little company called MonoBioArc Bionetworks. MonoBioArc. MonoArc.
Monarch.
Thank you for that. And MonoArc is doing something I think is really kind of cool. They allow you to accumulate all your medical records, all of them. Put them together in a format that you can share with your doctor, that you can print out, you can share with your family, and I think it's going to be earth-shaking for some of us, particularly when you look at those 8-inch thick folders that we have in our doctor's office. You now have a link you can send them, or a DVD you can send them. These are all my records. It's going to really facilitate. What's going to facilitate isn't simply your treatment, but the access you'll have now to new trials that come down the line, because trials are where it's going to happen. So with that, Kamathi, thank you for being here, and it's yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and I'm really honored to be here, so thank you for allowing us to come in. Monarch stands for the Monarch Butterfly, and I'm Kamathi, and my team here is Sunny Nagra. He is our Director of Clinical Trials, and then RJ is in the back. He's our Patient Engagement Director, so you'll get to meet all of them here in a little bit. Monarch stands for the ARC. It stands for a Monarch Butterfly, and I've been in the research business, in clinical research, for over 25 years, and I'm a biomedical engineer by training, and I've always been interested in medicine and technology. But I've always been frustrated with the antiquated clinical research model that we're currently using, which is you all have to go into a clinic and you have to go through multiple steps, and it's really, really hard, and I recognize that, and I'm always amazed over the years the number of people that actually go through all the effort and contribute to science. So my interest was really how can we actually accelerate research by being greater collaborators with patients. And that's what the ARC stands for, Accelerate Research Through Collaboration. And we believe we can do that now by empowering you to actually make it simple for you to share your data so that we can actually get to cures faster. So the IPF event that Bill talked about in Chicago is amazing. There's all these great ideas about how can we find cures for IPF, but every single one of them has to go through a clinical research process in order to get approved by the FDA. And that's where everything slows down. Because it's very, very hard to get patients to participate because oftentimes it's very hard and we recognize that. So switch to the next slide for me. What I'd like to do today is tell you a little bit about our vision and mission as well as share our solution that we think we have to help accelerate research for IPF, as well as orient you to our platform, and then if you'd like to sign up today, RJ's in the back to help you as well. So we'll tell you more about that. So this is Tammy. She's my sister-in-law. And about 2 years ago, she was diagnosed with a very rare cancer. And Tammy is really my inspiration for this whole company. And that's Cooper, her grandson. Although there's no solution for Tammy, and she does want to contribute, and we tried to find a trial for her. I had no idea. I thought, I'm in clinical research. I'm going to find a trial for her to get into. I was amazed at how hard it was to get all of the records, to actually get them together, to send to a trial center, to ask them if she would qualify for a trial there. It's in the basement of hospitals, trying to get the CT image and the MRI and running to get the labs. And it was an enormous amount of work, even though she even had a hospital that some of her records were available electronically, they were quite incomplete. We still had to go out and go across multiple providers and get her records. So that I was amazed. It was really, really hard to get her. She was interested in participating, but it was still really hard. And as I researched it more, it became apparent to me that 80% of clinical trials are delayed, and there's about 20% that actually never finish because they can't find enough patients. And the trial stops because they just can't find enough patients to participate. But the funny conundrum is that when we did a global survey a couple of years ago with Tufts University, we found that 87% of patients want to participate. So what's the problem? Why are there only 5% of patients that actually participate in trials? Even in cancer or in IPF, we only have about 10% of patients participating. There's 50,000 new cases of IPF every year, unfortunately. I was just about 6 months ago planning a trial for IPF. We needed 120 patients. We had to find 10 countries and 60 different centers in the hope that we will finish this trial in 18 months. We can only find 2 patients per year at each clinic. That's how hard it is to find people to participate. And there's lots of reasons for it, but the big reasons, number one reason is patients look to their doctors to tell them about trials, but doctors in the community setting may not know about trials, nor do they have the time. They're time pressured, so oftentimes awareness is not available. How many of you, when you got diagnosed, the first thing you did was go out on the internet and learn about IPF? That's what people do nowadays. So it's an opportunity now for us to really figure out how to change the awareness of trials and opportunities. But it starts with you, not necessarily with your doctor, unfortunately. The second reason is logistics. It's really hard. You may not live near the center, so therefore you can't participate. And then the last reason is really more around eligibility criteria. So oftentimes pharma companies and device companies will design these trials, but they design them in the silos of their buildings. And then only when they go out and they start the trial, then they realize there are really not patients that fit the criteria that we set out for the trial. So that's a huge miss too. So they keep coming back and changing the protocol. So fundamentally what we believe the opportunity now is that there is an opportunity to combine clinical care, because you go and you see your doctor in the community setting or at the center, at the specialty center, as well as you have your own personal health. And as Bill just shared with you today, the little device that you can now do home spirometry, you're starting to generate data. How many of you have a smartphone that you carry? Okay, it's like almost the majority of the room. That smartphone has the potential to give us health data. Just the tracking your movement and your activity every day will start to tell us more about how you are doing and the progression of your disease, and if you're doing better, is there different environmental factors that are correlating to how you're feeling today. So it's an opportunity for us to get data from multiple sources. But the problem is it's siloed and it's separate from everywhere. But what we have found is that you are the gateway to getting all of that data together. Historically, we've gone to different institutions or different doctors and tried to get the data. But unfortunately, in science, there's not always an incentive to share data, or the systems are not interoperable, so it's really hard. But you now have access to your data because of legislation that's been enacted in the last 3 years. If you ask for your medical data, within 30 days, they legally have to give it to you now. So as a result of that, we can go through you and get all the data and get it in a consolidated fashion, and also give a much more holistic look at your health. So we're not getting just the data from your pulmonologist. We'll get data from your primary care doctor or your internal medicine doctor, and we'll also get data from your dentist or from your ophthalmologist. And all of that data together, along with the data that's coming from your smartphone, can start to help us really understand IPF much better, so that we can develop better treatments for it. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. There's a build in that slide. Next slide, please. So this is our team. We have an amazing team of multidiscipline. We have people that are focused on patient engagement and social media, and they have experience working with a variety of different patient groups. We have Sunny is a pharmacist, as well as a self-taught technology digital health person, so he's involved. We have people from University of Waterloo, which is like the MIT of Canada, and they are helping us with proprietary algorithms to really get at this data and mine it to say, is there some deep insights that can really help us understand and find a cure for IPF? And then we have some amazing advisors, some out of the FDA that are advising us, as well as Bill Bradford, who was one of the researchers that developed Expiratory or Finado. And we also have Han Hock, who is a telemedicine expert. He actually scaled up telemedicine in the military. And telemedicine, you'll find out, is a real fundamental tool that we're introducing to make it easier for all of you not to keep having to travel into the center, but we want to bring the trial to you in the comfort of your home. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. Next slide. So this is our solution. We are creating what's called the Smart Health Record. And what we do is we, through you and with your consent, so that's what we call patient-mediated, we collect patient-mediated data by getting your consent. We'll go out to all of your providers and we'll collect all the data, and we digitize it and turn it into what we call the Smart Health Record. We also provide you, and this is all complimentary, we also provide you a mobile app. If you have an iPhone, you can download this app and it will start to collect data as well. The home spirometer that Bill showed earlier can connect up to this app, and if you blow into it, all the data just passively goes in. You don't have to sit there and write things down. It'll just do it for you. Let me think what else. So this Smart Health Record, once all that data comes in, we convert it, we de-identify it, so we don't share your information with anybody. We don't sell mailing lists or anything like that. But what we do is we take that data and we give it to researchers to have a much better holistic look at the data. It also allows us to pre-qualify you for potential trials. And if you qualify for a trial, then we will reach out to you and say, hey, there's a trial over here and you qualify. Are you interested? And if you're interested, then we will connect you to that researcher. and make the connection. So all that data is used to do that. Now how that makes a difference, switch to the next thing, is on the top of this slide. It's a very busy slide, so I apologize. But the traditional model of doing clinical trials, we start by designing the trial, as I mentioned, in the silos of the walls of the pharma companies. And then we go out and activate a bunch of clinics. And then the clinics go out and find the patients. And that can take up to 18 months. In our model, we actually bring patients together. So we're creating an IPF research network. And the purpose of the network is to accelerate research. So we recognize that there are other places where you get resources for like the IPF warriors, a place for community, a place for you guys to learn from each other. The point of our network is specifically for research and to help collect the data and make it simple for you to connect your data to the researchers. And so in that network, the data that you're generating from day one is used to inform new trial designs so that we don't have a lot of trials that have eligibility criteria that none of you would qualify for, but better criteria, as well as we pre-qualify it. And then if you could either participate in the trial, we'll try to influence pharma companies to put the trials near where you live. So we'll actually show them a footprint of where the patients are that qualify for the trial and try to influence them to put their centers near you so it's not such a burden to get to the trial. If that doesn't quite work, we actually have a platform where we offer what we call our connected clinical trial, and that's where we use a telemedicine platform. You'll get an iPad or a template pad that will come to your home, and a mobile nurse will come to your home, and they will deliver the drug, and you'll use the iPad to actually have a telemedicine visit, so like a Skype or FaceTime visit with your doctor. And all the records will all be digitized, and the data, everything will be digitized so that it transfers over to them remotely. Let me stop and see if there's any questions. I know I've thrown a lot at you.
You've repeatedly characterized everything you're doing as IPF. What about those of us that are not, don't have IPF? We have related pulmonary fibrosis.
Sure. So we're partnering with the Pulmonary Fibrosis Foundation right now. We're talking to them about a potential partnership where we want to eventually expand the network to include more fibrosis. So we're starting in IPF as a small space, but our hope and our vision is to expand it.
I'm already diagnosed with IPF and I had just one lung, right lung transplant done 2 years ago.
Yes.
Do I qualify for this study?
So you qualify for our network. So we're not in a study yet, although we will be. We're going to be kicking off 2 studies here, one in a couple weeks and another one later in the summer, late summer. So I don't have the complete criteria for that yet, but you absolutely qualify to come into the network.
Okay,
The beauty of the network is that just by joining the network, you're contributing to research.
And also I'm a radiologist, so I know something.
Fantastic. Yep. Fantastic.
What's the average size of your study group? In other words, participants that you need for most studies?
It depends on what phase of the trial. So a typical phase 2 trial is anywhere from 120 to 150 patients. A phase 3, which is when we're really confirming that the drug works in broader populations, we have to do 2 phase 3s, and each one is 300 patients typically.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the other interesting thing about our platform is once you finish the trial, you actually get to come back to the network. We don't say goodbye, thank you very much, we're not going to interact with you anymore. We're going to actually invite you back into the network, and we'll continue to collect your data so that we can actually develop long-term longitudinal data. So there's a lot of people that are doing really well on IPF, and we want to understand why. And so we'll continue to collect that data so that we can learn and continue to share with the community. The other beauty of our platform is we actually give the data back to you as well. So as Bill mentioned earlier, the first thing we do is we consolidate all of your medical records. So we call it unifying your medical records. You give us your provider's name and their contact information. We'll go out, get all of that consolidated, but then we give that data back to you. So you'll have it on your smartphone or your laptop, and you'll have that in a really nice, organized fashion. And then you can actually give it to your clinicians as well. There's a DICOM viewer so that your clinician can actually view it and make the diagnosis on it based on that. So that's a technical thing for the radiologist in the room. So that's a really nice feature that you'll be able to have. And then as we get more patients, we will give you population level data to show, ages of, here's the number of people in the community or in the network that are on this particular treatment. So we'll be able to show, here's a certain percentage that have this comorbidity or a common disease related to that. So we'll share all that information with you down the road. So you'll get some data back. You'll be able to share it with your clinicians to help manage your treatment. The mobile app will actually give you us trend data too, which I'll show you an example of. So that's the next thing. We'll give you a mobile app that you can help to track all of your symptoms and then share it with your doctor when you go in. So when the doctor asks you, how have you been, you can actually share some data with them and not try to remember how you did. And then certainly we have a section around connecting. So we will be featuring on a quarterly basis some webinars where we will connect you to IPF experts. You'll be able to, from the comfort of your home, you'll be able to dial in and listen to a brief talk about things that you're interested in. So some of the things that we'll do is we'll reach out to the network and say, what are you interested in hearing about if you had an IPF expert in the room for 30 minutes? So they'll talk a little bit about the topic of interest, and then you'll have an opportunity to connect and ask questions with them as well. I think our first one is going to actually feature a clinician from UCSF. So that's coming up. And then certainly we also we want to hear from you. We want to hear more about what's meaningful to you. So we're developing a drug or a device to help you manage your disease or to treat. What symptoms are most important to you? And we want to understand that, so we'll often ask surveys and questions. We try to keep it to a minimum because we recognize that you don't want to be filling out a bunch of surveys constantly, so it's super simple type things that we'll do. And then finally, as a part of the network, then you're permitting access to your data to be used for purposes of research. Questions? Okay, so this is our business model. I often get questions on who owns the data. You own the data. You absolutely own the data. And you can give us permission and you can take away permission whenever you want to. And it's free. All the data that we have in there that's for you for your purposes, it's absolutely free. For the purposes of your clinicians to manage your disease, if they want to use your data, absolutely free. Our business model is we actually work with pharma companies to execute clinical trials, to inform clinical trials, and that's how we make the money that we need to keep everything going and to keep the business sustainable. Any questions there? We also have a patient advisory board, so we are very much believe that we need to co-create the experience with you. I can't be in your shoes. I can't understand what you need, and so we actually have a patient advisory board for each of our networks. I'm going to switch to the next one real quick. These are a couple of our folks on our network right now that you may know them. They're pretty vocal in the space, so they're helping us design the network and some of the things that you experience. So here's to give you a quick look at the Monarch experience. This is our portal that, once you register, what we want you to do is give us your name and your email, and then if you'd like to, we can schedule an appointment with you. So we will actually have a phone call with you to walk you through, so we won't expect you to do everything online by yourself. So we register, this is what your medical record will look like once it's consolidated. It'll give you kind of a longitudinal or a long-term look based on year of your records. It'll give you all your labs, your images. You can actually click in and see the actual doctor's notes if you want to. The next one. Here's an example of the labs. It'll give you ranges. If you want to do a trend of your labs, you can do some trends, which your doctors would like to do. And then you'll be able to easily share. You just put the doctor's email and give permission, and then the doctor will be able to see what you see. This is the mobile app that you can download. Super simple. Unfortunately, we only have it on iPhone now, but we're working on getting it on others. How many of you have an iPhone? Oh, wonderful. So you can immediately use this. And do any of you wear an activity, a Fitbit?
Fitbit. I see some Fitbits.
Awesome. If you guys have Fitbit, it'll connect and we can get the data. We're also going to be giving out, I'm wearing what's called a Withing activity watch. It only needs to be charged every 8 months. You just need to, and it'll track your sleep and activity. And so we're hoping to give these away, and so I'll talk to Bill offline about that. But we'll be doing, because we want to understand, sleep is often, I can imagine, that is an area of, and actually in all diseases, sleep is one of the first things to be disturbed, and then it has downstream impacts on health as well. So we're very interested in sleep and activity in IPF. So this is an example. I mentioned to you that you can see your trends. So when you go to the doctor, you can show him your data and say, this is how I've been doing. For both sleep, activity, it'll also do your spirometry, it'll do your weight. I think there's something else. Symptoms, there's one symptom tracker. I don't know if we have a picture. So we did a little workshop with patients as well as researchers and community physicians. And we asked them what are the 5 most meaningful symptoms that we would like people to track. And I believe they came up with cough, shortness of breath, fatigue, and then the 2 marketed products, nausea and diarrhea. You guys agree? Yeah. Is there anything that will top those 3? Shortness of breath, cough, and fatigue. And then we also have a section that you can, on the mobile app, where you can connect to different resources very quickly. And these are all like to the Pulmonary Fibrosis Foundation. Bill, if you want to, I don't remember if we have IPFWarrior group on there, but we can get it on there. So it's just a simple space that where you can go to multiple places. So very quickly to get started, you can visit monarchbio.com. And if you know someone, today, RJ, could you maybe put the sign-up sheets to everyone?
Yeah.
So RJ's going to, you might want to just put them on the table. We just need your name and your email, and then if you want to, you can actually go and set up an appointment with either Sunny or RJ, and they will actually call you to set it up. But it's a pretty simple. Once they'll walk you through the consent forms that we need in order to go out and get your medical records, and then you'll want to have a list of your providers that you want us to go get the medical records from. And then this is just different contact information, which we'll leave with Bill, and you're free to contact us in these variety of ways. And so I welcome you, and we'd love to have you join our IPF network to really accelerate research, because we want to make it super simple for you to share data so that researchers can really accelerate research for a cure. Questions? Great. Thank you so much, Bill.
Is that exciting? I'm excited, but I ain't excited either. What can I tell you? I think we have one of the loyalist friends in my journey with IPF that I've had the good fortune to know. And I think many of you in this room know Esther Gahia. And Esther is, she's more than a pulmonary rehab person. She really is. She's an activist, she's an advocate, she's a friend to everyone in this room, literally. If you don't know her, you want to get to know her. She is not just an educator and a therapist, a technician, but she's really knowledgeable. And a lot of the things that we talk about, like FVC and parameters and all that stuff, she can make it crystal clear and easy to understand. So I'd like you to help me welcome Esther. And Esther, she's busy talking to Steve.
Thanks, Bill. Wow, I love those words. I hope I live up to them. Okay, now I am not very tech neurologically advanced. So Sunny, I need your help. I know enough to do my job, and that's about it. Yeah. Okay, then I just, okay. I don't have a thermostat, so I'm used to walking around, so we'll, can you see me here? Yes. Okay. Well, thank you for coming. In front of you, you have the slides that I'm going to be going through today. I apologize, the print is very small. When I printed it, I should have made it bigger for you, so just kind of bear with me. You might need to use a magnifying glass to see some of that, but I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because I think we're going to try to see if some of you can sign up with Comedy, and so I don't want to take too much of your time. I've been in the respiratory care field about 22 years, and I've been doing pulmonary rehab about 17, facilitating support groups about that amount of time. So I'm always learning. And so IPF, interstitial lung disease, pulmonary fibrosis is an area that I've learned with you because it was not a very common diagnosis when I first got into the field. So I was asked, actually we have a support group in the Bedford area, Mid-Cities area, that we started in 2014, and at one of those meetings, one of our pulmonary function specialists talked at one of those meetings, and she was invited today, and unfortunately couldn't do it, so I'm going to wing it. So I know the basics, and I think as long as we don't know the fundamental parts of the test, I think that's what matters. So let's go through the objectives real quick. All right, I'm going to define, in simple terms, what a pulmonary function test is. I'm going to explain the difference between a PFT and a spirometry. They're very similar. And then I'm going to define some of the lung readings, and I'm going to tell you right now that slide's going to be very busy. And then I'm also going to provide some tips for preparing for lung function testing, because there are some things that you can do, okay? All right. If you have questions, you can kind of chime in as you go. Non-invasive, it's pulmonary function testing or lung function testing is basically, they're not invasive. I mean, they take a lot out of you, but they are non-invasive. But what we're looking for is we're looking for lung volume, flows, capacity, and gas exchange. So there are kind of two parts to a pulmonary function test. The first one is the spirometry. We call it simple spirometry in the respiratory care field. And that's going to give us an estimate. Not an accurate, but an estimate size of your lungs. And I'll show you a picture in a minute. You're going to breathe kind of through a mouthpiece. You're going to put nose clips. Okay, it's pretty simple. All right, that's why we call it a simple spirometry. And then the plexography, or the body box. This is the most accurate test. Okay, so you're going to be let me put this over here and show you guys some pictures here. Does that look familiar to you guys, that box?
Yes.
That body box? Do you get claustrophobic in it? No? Okay, the reason I like a full pulmonary function test when they use a body box is I like to look at the diffusion. I like to look at how the oxygen is crossing through the air sac, the alveoli, and how that carbon dioxide is being exhaled. So I like a full pulmonary function testing. Sometimes it's not ordered. Why do you think that they're not ordered all the time? Yeah. So sometimes I have to really ask my doctors, I really need this to qualify a patient for pulmonary rehab. And then this is a simple spirometry. Quite a difference, right? It's not a tight, a tight-fitting, booth. How we get accurate when you're in the booth with your lung volumes and your lung capacities is you're going to breathe a very non-toxic gas, usually has some nitrogen in it. So when you breathe in, and then when you blow out, they look at the pressure differences. So that's how you get accuracy. Okay, so does that make sense? And most of our patients can handle it. All right. Am I talking too fast? I'm glad I'm not talking in Spanish, because boy, that goes even faster. Okay, all right. Okay, here we go. All right, this is a busy slide. But when you're looking at a reading or a printout of your spirometry or your pulmonary function test, we see a bunch of numbers. Man, there's all kinds of initials up there. I kind of, in my research that I was doing, I kind of picked the high ones and the ones that we tend to look at in trying to qualify patients for pulmonary rehab. So the FVC, the mother of all, is the forced vital capacity. That is the amount of air that you forcefully exhale after you inhale. So it's a big deep breath in, blow it out. And squeeze, 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 squeeze. Okay? Your FEV, I love this one. This is the amount of air that you exhale in various seconds. So when I exhale, they're going to measure FEV1, FEV2, and FEV3. We look at the FEV1 a lot when you're doing studies, when you're looking at medicine efficacy, treatment efficacy, progression of disease. And then there's a ratio of those two. So you look at the FEV1 compared to the FVC, and we're going to get a percentage. And in a minute, I'm going to talk about which numbers are volumes and which numbers are flows, okay? And then your PEF, or peak expiratory flow, that is something we look at more with asthmatics. We look at it for other disease processes, but it's mainly for the asthmatics. And that is something, again, that's big deep breath in and then blow it out quick. No squeezing, just blow it out quick. And then we have an FEF 2575, and then the diffusion capacity. Okay, any questions so far? I'm very animated, so I'm used to teaching patients all the time. Yes?
When I take my PFTs, I sit in a booth, but they don't close the door. So that's the same as the
Yeah.
portable one that you just said.
Yeah, because they don't close the booth, yeah.
Okay, so closing the booth would be a more
Accurate.
more rigorous
Uh-huh.
test.
And if your DLCO or your diffusion is not changing much and they're trying to look at all these numbers on top, that's probably why they're leaving it open. Yeah.
What's the
Yes.
best time to do it twice a day? Morning before your breakfast or something, or
Which one? The PEF?
spiral?
The Spiro? Like for our lung transplant patients, they usually tell them how to do them. You're gonna learn later that you don't want to perform this test after eating. Okay, there's some things that we can do to help us get the best results. Does that make sense? Because that's what we want, right? And so you're also going to learn that it's not only all on your back, it's also on the therapist that's coaching you. If I was coaching you, I could probably, because I'm pretty animated, okay? But if you have a therapist saying, okay, I want you to take a deep breath in, and then when I tell you to, I want you to blow out as fast as hard as you can. Okay, ready?
So you're a holler.
Squeeze, 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 come on, squeeze, squeeze. Okay, so that makes a difference, but there are some things that we can do to try to get the best results. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, when you see your results on the paper, it says FBC, then you get a PRED and a PRE. What does that mean?
Those are extra numbers. I mean, I think maybe pulmonologists or specialists in specialty clinics look at those, but to look at the nuts and bolts, these are kind of it.
Okay.
Okay. I know if you're probably in studies, they're going to look at some of those extra numbers. Yes, sir. Yes, Bill.
How important is the predicted value for a patient versus the actual number?
They're important to look at what the picture is of your lungs now. Okay, I don't think any of us are predicted. We're going to talk about predictors. I think that's next slide.
Is that an important number though, or is it just something that they do?
It's something that they have to do, to look at, to gauge progression, to guess kind of the status or the level of the disease.
So you don't have bragging rights if they're great numbers?
Yes, you do, absolutely. And I'm a pulmonary rehab therapist, and I've seen miracles. So I say, and again, for the doctors in here, they're probably going to say, Esther, don't say that. But I'm going to say it anyway.
Now, so the trend, right? Trend of your stability or progress or what?
Yes, yes. But I say they're just numbers. That's all they are. They are looking at the picture of your lungs, but my patients can do so much on 25% lung function, on 18% diffusion. You guys are my heroes because I don't know how you do it. Well, I do. It's probably a higher power.
Does it limit their walking or any kind of activity?
Yeah.
What was the minimum?
I have a patient right now that is IPF. She's an 80-year-old. She's on 8 liters of oxygen on a high flow nasal cannula. She has an 18%. Remember, anything below 80% is considered abnormal on any of the numbers. 80% is a magic number. Her diffusion, you guys, is 18%. Her FEV1, the amount of air that she blows out in that first second, is about 20%. She does 10 minutes on the new step. She does 5 minutes on the treadmill. She does free weights. She does 2 leg weight machines.
Kind of amazing.
They're just numbers. But you know what it is?
Yes, and it is.
That's what it is. Okay? All right. And again, I kind of talked about this already as far as which numbers are important. Okay, so when we're looking at lung diseases, we're looking at what's restrictive, what limits my volume, and what's obstructive, what limits my flows. So volume and speed, 2 different things. Okay? Your restrictive diseases are going to be looking at these lung volumes here on the bottom, and I'm focusing on this one because of the group that I'm speaking with, pulmonary fibrosis. Okay, so that we're going to look at the FVC, the forced vital capacity, the FEV1, how much air you're getting out in that first second, and then how much gas are you exchanging, that DLCO. Okay? And just on top here, when we look at how fast you get the air out, those are obstructive diseases, COPD. Okay? So COPD and pulmonary fibrosis are 2 different diseases. But when you probably were kind of getting diagnosed with some of the symptoms that you had going on, they probably said you had asthma or COPD or bronchitis. Okay? But they are 2 disease processes. They're different. Okay? Any questions? All right. What do the results mean? We kind of touched on this already. Your predicted amounts are going to be based on your age, height, ethnicity, and gender. We always look at the percentages as clinical people, and you should too. And then again, here it says anything less than 80% of your predicted is considered an abnormal. I hate that word, but it is what it is. Okay? So one of the things about my pulmonary fibrosis patients is you all are great about keeping track of your pulmonary function testing. All right, I got permission to use this. I'll block the patient's information. But it has all your numbers here. And I'm going to show you this here on the slide, but it's going to have the percentage. So if you want to see what's going on with your disease process, you can start asking for copies of these. Okay? But you'll see, the percent reference, it's going to be your predicted. All right? Now, why do we do lung function testing? Well, it's usually an accessory tool to diagnose various lung diseases. It's not the definitive tool. We know with pulmonary fibrosis, we're using a high-resolution CT scan or lung biopsy, and they're trying to move away from the lung biopsies because how invasive they are. But it is to diagnose various diseases, those obstructive diseases and those restrictive diseases. And this is just some reasons why, that I've talked about already. The big one, I know when you're talking about the 2 medications that were approved for IPF, they're always looking at that FEV1. So we want to assess, medication efficacy and progression of lung disease. Okay. Sometimes they'll do them before a surgery, depending on what the surgery is for. Okay. This is the one I wish that you had bigger on your handout. I think, and I'm going to agree with the doctor that circled these numbers, the FVC, the FEV1, and the DLCO are the most important ones. Now, there may be a pulmonologist that's sitting here that may say, no, Esther, I look at all the numbers. Okay? But this is kind of giving you a quick snapshot. When you're looking through lots of people rehab referral patients, and we're trying to get people qualified, we're gonna pull this out. And this doctor in this particular test had already circled what he was looking at too. So these are the results of a Caucasian male, 5'7", 59 years old. So all that was important in trying to pick out his predictor. Now see where it says reference? Okay? Those are the highest predicted for this person. Okay? Look at that diffusion. I have him on 4 liters of oxygen. He's being evaluated for a lung transplant. 4 liters of oxygen. Worked with him yesterday. He's walking 12 minutes on the treadmill at 1 duration. Then he's doing a new step, which is kind of like a recumbent bike for 8 minutes. He does some weightlifting, about 5 machines, 10 reps each. Then he goes back to the treadmill for another 10 minutes. Amazing, right? Okay, so you'll see that he's about half on his FVC at 41.3%, and he's about half on his FEV1. But that diffusion, man, that is low. Okay? But this patient is still able to do a lot. So,
Just we are in this character, just for a second.
I'm
Is
sorry.
there any difference between the aerobic exercise, whether it is the brisk walking to sitting bicycle to treadmill?
Is there a difference as far as how speed?
How it helps the,
Oh yeah, he's not doing the stuff very fast.
I'm sorry,
Well, he's not walking for 10 to 12 minutes very fast. But as pulmonary rehab therapists, we don't look at that. We're worried about duration.
no duration.
How long? So, you know, in this particular guy being at 59, he's a pilot. He was always working out, and he was used to walking, 3.0, 3.5 miles per hour for 15 minutes or 20 minutes on the treadmill. Your lungs are not going to let you do that. I had to have a long talk with him about that. Okay? We want to keep the oxygen saturation level at a normal amount. For our program, our protocol is 90%. Because as you start to get below that, your brain is suffering and your heart is suffering first of all. Well, we know that your heart and your lungs work together, right? So if your lungs are already sick or compromised, it's already putting some pressure on your heart, so we don't want to make that tougher and just make him walk real fast and then his oxygen level drop when now his heart's going to beat faster and then we're going to start having some heart problems. Then he really has a double whammy. He already has a lung problem, okay? All right. And I look at these every day. I look at one. All right, preparing for a PFT. I just learned this by researching this. So I was really upset with Edna because I had to put this together that fast in addition to being in school, but I had to do a little bit of research. And I came across this. I have my references listed. I never learned this in school to tell my patients this. Okay? But it makes sense. Don't eat a heavy meal before your test. Make sure you're rested because it takes a lot of effort. Okay? Usually you don't want to schedule anything that day because it's going to take it out of you. Don't wear anything tight-fitting. Get the bathroom before you do. Especially if I was your coach. But I'm a pulmonary rehab coach, so we're pretty animated. And then the bottom part, you may be asked to stop taking certain medications. That's more for our asthmatics because we want to see what the lungs look like before a bronchodilator or medication, and then we'll give them a breathing treatment while they're sitting there, or maybe an inhaler, and then we'll have them repeat the test to see if they're responding to the medication. And we usually want the numbers to be 10% higher after than they were before. Okay? Have you all ever been asked to stop taking any meds? No? Okay. Before the test. I think that's more for our COPD. Yes, sir.
Early on, a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago, when I first started taking my PFTs, they sometimes would give me albuterol. I think that's what it was. Inhale, because I was having trouble, and that doesn't seem to happen now. I mean, stronger. I've gotten better.
That you exercise, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't use the albuterol.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. Because, giving a bronchodilator before the test I think it's just to kind of help you get through the test, but some of these numbers aren't gonna lie, especially your diffusion. And when you're looking at pulmonary fibrosis or restricted diseases, we're looking at the diffusions, okay? We're wanting to know how the transfer of gases is happening. We want to know how that oxygen is crossing through that alveolar wall, that air sac wall, those little great flex structures. We want to see how that's happening. Because with the pulmonary fibrosis, even if it's idiopathic or not, we know that the scarring develops scar tissue and that lining gets thicker, okay? And, just quickly, and I'll go back to your question. Whenever a pulmonary fibrosis patient is exercising and they're putting more demand on their lungs, it's harder for that oxygen to pass through. Okay, so this test, a lung function test, is kind of like an exercise for you. So we want to see how bad really is it when they're having to exert. Does that make sense? It's kind of like we're exercising, kind of like a stress test for the lungs. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I just was going to make a comment on that. So my pulmonologist said, when she tracks my numbers, you know, we have a little chart that we look at every 3 months. But that DLCO number is a better indicator of disease progression than the FEV number. I mean, that's what we're more, if we see that one change more drastically, that, in her opinion, is a better indicator of the progression.
Right.
Should, you know, we watch that one a little bit more.
Right. And you know, I love working with patients. I've educated my patients. This is the actual first live presentation I've ever done. Okay, so I was pretty nervous about it, but you know, and the doctors will tell you, Esther, pulmonary rehab, those numbers are not going to get better. And I'm going to argue, I'm going to say, yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. They may be 1 or 2 or 3% better, but you know what? We're going to take that. It's all about how you look at things, your perspective, and how you take things in. So if your number drops, don't get so discouraged. You keep doing what you're doing, and then you never know the next test. If you were 18% one time in 3 months, now you're 20%. A doctor may say, I'm going to say, way to go. What have you been doing? Have you been exercising? Okay. Yes, sir.
So how accurate are the little oximeters that you use on your finger?
Great question.
Because what I do is, I do a lot of walking, 10 to 15 miles a day.
Okay.
Because I'm totally freaked out, okay?
That is awesome.
I'm trying to exercise and get health. Well, what you said earlier was that when you're exercising, you're putting more strain on your heart and everything. So what I'll do, and I'll try to take the oximeter and measure, and I try not to go below 93 on it.
Okay.
So,
That's good.
is that a good way?
Yep.
Because
Yeah,
right now I'm stabilized.
Right.
But I'm doing
And
everything
you
I
don't,
can
you
to
don't
live.
use
You know what I'm saying?
oxygen.
So
Do you use oxygen to work out with?
I do not.
Okay.
I'm not been put on it yet, but
That is great.
I've got a family history of both pulmonary and rheumatoid arthritis.
Okay.
So
All right. Yeah.
I'm
So.
just wondering. We went to South Dakota not too long ago,
Okay.
and we did a little hike to a place called Arnie's Peak. I did wonderful, but I've been working 6 months. My wife was kind of huffing and puffing, so I kind of got on her a little bit and said, well, we need to take you to the doctor. I took a little thing with me. And so I was just wondering, what's the act? Because, you know, I'll use it at the house before I go do my 3-month visit with the pulmonologist.
Okay.
And his is always reading 1 or 2 different than mine.
Well, if
And 1 or 2 is a big difference.
if your hands are cold or your nail beds are thick, what we call clubbing from long-term hypoxemia, sometimes it can kind of vary. I teach my patients how to take their heart rate.
Right.
Okay, you count it for 15 seconds. You multiply that by 4, and if that heart rate is similar to the heart rate that's showing on your pulse oximeters, because most of them will give you the SpO2 and your heart rate, then your machine's probably pretty accurate. Okay. In pulmonary rehab, we have our little ladies that use a sculpt nails, and I've got one right now that she just will not cut her nails. So I'm having to get her oxygen level up here. But that's a quick way is to see if the heart rates are matching your pulse. Okay?
So I think you was speaking about accuracy, especially my recent function test showed when I was first diagnosed at 34%, and then this year it was 60. So is that like a dramatic change?
Yeah, that's a big time change.
Congratulations.
That's awesome.
Way to go.
So see, the numbers changed. Now here's the thing. If you are exercising, and you should be, when you're performing this test, we have a lot of accessory respiratory muscles like this one, that helps you perform those maneuvers. So if you're building up these muscles, you're building up those respiratory muscles that surround your lungs. So when you're performing that maneuver, those numbers are going to show up higher. That's why I say they change, because I'm a pulmonary rehab therapist. I exercise my patients. They get stronger. So it may not necessarily be that your lungs are getting a stronger capacity, because sometimes once it's lost, but it's those muscles that surround your lungs. And that is a good biofeedback to keep you exercising, folks. I don't care if you can only do two or 3 minutes on the treadmill. You go to 2 or 3 minutes to that treadmill 3 times a day. Okay? So that is great. That's excellent. I mean, I would say if you got those 2 readings, because you usually perform the test 3 times, say that you got, what did you say first, 30%? 34%, then the next test that they did at that same time was 60, I'd say that was error. But if it was more than a
No,
month,
it was a year later.
oh yeah, absolutely, that's awesome. Congratulations, that's great.
Are you getting younger too, Manny?
No. Every year.
Go backwards.
I want to know your secret if you are, okay? All right, risks of a PFT. There's not a whole lot of them. I mean, dizziness, shortness of breath, and coughing. Those are kind of some symptoms that pulmonary fibrosis patients deal with. Okay? They are considered non-invasive. Have we had people pass out? Yeah, but not very many. We just let the rest of it. Let's see the top again. Here are some contraindications though. Because of the effort that you're doing, the pressure that you're putting on your heart from, if I walk around holding my breath, well, I'm putting pressure on my heart, so I'm squeezing my heart while I'm doing that. So, any, chest pain, unstable heart conditions, you don't want to have it after a cataract surgery. You probably want to wait a couple of months. Any abdominal surgeries, just kind of common sense stuff. If you're not feeling well, meaning that you're probably saying, Esther, I probably don't feel well the majority of the time, but this is an active infection, you're running a fever, you're coughing up yellow phlegm, that kind of thing, you probably want to reschedule your lung function test. So.
How long after eye surgery you should not do it?
I'm sorry,
For
sir?
how long you should not be doing this after eye surgery?
After eye surgery, that's probably a question for a doctor. I would want at least probably 3 months if I were doing your PFT.
Oh, our spirometry can do that.
She did it, I'm sorry.
Home spirometry?
Home spirometry, I don't know. Be careful with that one. Okay? All right. But yeah, your doctor will usually tell you, and this kind of brings up another, if you're being seen for something else, you want to let your provider know, like, you had cataract surgery. Dr. So-and-so, I do spirometries, where I have to blow in and blow out real quick twice a day. Am I able to do that? They'll tell you, okay? I know for us, when someone has had cataract surgery because they lift weights, we only wait 2 weeks.
Yeah, I had less than 25 days after my cataract surgery.
But usually it's lifting weights because you're holding that pressure. Now my patients think they're going to get off easy. Esther, I'm having cataract surgery. And I'm going to be out for 2 weeks. I'm like, no, you're not. We can walk on the treadmill to the new steps. Okay, so anyhow, general tips for any testing or procedure. This is just something that I share with all my patients. You all do a great job, and the internet has helped us to be. Anybody have COPD in here? So I'm going to brag on you guys. Do you have IPF too?
Yeah.
Okay. Typically, my pulmonary fibrosis patients are younger, not all the time, but you all seem to do a better job of educating yourself about your lung disease and how to be proactive. I'm not saying all. When you're looking at the big picture, we're seeing that. So I try to, and my COPD folks, sometimes they're older and maybe they're like me, they're learning the internet, okay, how to use all this technical stuff. But You need to know what's going on with your testing, your procedures, with your disease, what you can do to manage your symptoms, and what you can do to manage your illness, right? Because the rest of your years you have left, you want them to have as much quality as possible. So, but here's some general tips for any testing. Know the test or procedure. Know why you're having it. Okay? We know that when you have breathing problems, anything spontaneous or anything that you don't plan for can kind of make you short of breath. So make sure you know how to get to the place you're going and you arrive on time. Okay? We don't want to, cause any more stress on you. Nowadays, with the healthcare changes, there's, maybe co-pays, so that may be something our patients always ask about their co-pays for pulmonary rehab. Always ask, is there anything that I'm at risk for, all right? And then get your results. Make those clinical people tell you, what does that mean? What does 34% lung diffusion mean? Okay? And they should be able to explain that to you. And if they can't, they should be able to find the answer with you. Okay? Any questions? Let's see. Man, I didn't even
Esther,
Yes.
you have a question.
Yes.
Every time I do one of these tests, this problem, I have a coughing fit. Is that
Common.
Yeah.
okay? And is there anything you can do to help that?
Ask your doctor about that. There are some things that, test on pearls, things like that may help your cough. But when we look at your results, and that's a great question because I didn't show a flow volume loop, we also look at how fast the air comes in and out. So, okay. So, but yeah, that happens. Any other questions?
Yes.
Huh? Yes, sir.
I recently had one of these tests. At the very end of it, you squirted something in there out of a container. What is that?
Did they put you in the booth? They may have been looking at what we call an MVV. Did you have to breathe a certain pattern after that?
No, it was like, it burned a lot. Just took a few seconds.
I'll have to ask Edna on that one, my PFT person, to see what that was. Did it numb or anything? It didn't numb you?
It hurt.
Okay.
Was it a bronchodilator?
Yeah, that's what it almost.
It probably was
They do the
then.
pre and post.
Yeah, it probably was. I mean, we use a spacer. All right, any other? Yes.
Just so everybody knows, when you have a lung transplant, they monitor your spirometry very carefully. And like, if it's 10% under what you did the last time, then we can come back in a couple of days. And then if it's still low, then they will shoot you up with a bunch of steroids, because they think you're rejecting your lungs.
We want it to stay stable.
Yeah.
Okay, we want anything
So let everybody
10%
know
change.
that if they're looking for a transplant, you gotta watch that and be careful. You would, or
Alright.
you'll get shot at steroids.
All right, here's my last slide, because I have a really bad sense of humor. All right.
I just,
You gotta keep laughing, right?
I have a,
These are my references.
I got, Esther, I just want to say I got 2 sessions of pulmonary rehab with you, and it's always helped. And most of my knowledge about oxygen, how to use it, where your levels need to be, have come from you. So you've been a lifesaver and an extender for me.
Don't make
So
me
I
cry.
appreciate it.
For saying that, you want to
Shelley, thank you for thanking Baylor, because Tammy being here is great, but nobody, I want to say thank you. Because, Shelley, just every single month, these meetings are because of Shelley and her team that she put together. And I want to say thank you. And the other unsung hero here is Steve. Steve and Roseanne are videoing our meetings for us. They put them up online. It takes a lot of time and resources and attention. And Steve and Roseanne, both of you guys, say thank you. I did have a little bird tell me something that there are some trials that will be virtual trials that are happening with our good friends at Monowaric. So if you haven't signed up for forms, I'd ask you to do so now and pass them over the aisle so Sonny and RJ can collect them and accumulate them so they can follow up with you and contact you. I'll give you the address one more time. First, it's got the hostess on this little neat little barometer I showed you. If you're going to get one, I'd jump on it between you and me. But the address to send it to go online to is it's patientempower.com/page/PFWarrior. And I will be sending the link out, but getting a $1,300 device for a few questions and answers is a pretty good deal.
It's not required. You don't have
But I've already done it.
You do that.
All right, guys, that's our meeting. Thank you so much. It'll be a great meeting next month. Any questions or comments or suggestions?
Got an email? Yeah. Email address?
No? No? Okay. This might be, I'm kind of, sincere, no, I'll just talk about it very briefly. I'm going to be kind of extracting myself from this group. I'll still be on the periphery of it. I'll be involved as much as I can. But one of the initiatives I'm doing on the Catalyst is I'm going to take a program like this nationally, because I think there's a huge, huge window of opportunity for more patients to become engaged and involved. And I'm doing that in concert with the founders of that organization. So it's going to impact the PFF, it's going to impact the American Lung Association. So I'll be here, I might be sitting back there enjoying it a lot more than I enjoyed up here. So that's going to happen. We are looking for people to become involved. If you'd like to become more involved in this group, if you know somebody who should be involved in this group, let me know, please, because this time necessitates my stepping aside. We'd like to have a caregiver here, not a patient, because we patients kind of come and go, so to speak, and caregivers have maybe a little more continuity and to maintain things. And so anyone here that might be interested, if you want to get hold of me, drop me a note, call me, whatever, happy to talk to you about it. It's a rewarding opportunity. What I like to see personally is this position kind of change over every year, so we get some new fresh ideas and fresh thoughts and fresh perspectives of how to make it even better. So, yeah, that's it. Thanks, guys. Yes, Sean.
Next month, the meeting next month will be back at UT Southwestern, and our favorite psychotherapist, Dr. Joseph Trombello, is going to be leading the session there. So,
What date?
is it June 10th?
Second, it's always the second Saturday of the month. Second Saturday at 10 a.m., wherever we meet at.
Do we need to get some kind of
June 10th.
validation for the?
Do we have parking vouchers?
Amy has those.
Tammy has those. Thank you, Tammy. Patty, make sure you get those. Thanks, guys.
2014.